Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we'll be continuing our mod highlight series, but this time we're going to talk about two mods that work perfectly together. In fact, you need them both if you want to run this faction. OVN Lost Factions and Expanded Roster Amazons. As you can expect from the mod names, both of these factions work together to create the Amazons of Lustria faction, an army of primal warrior women and vicious beasts deep within the jungles of Lustria. The Amazons themselves were actually introduced very early on in the lifespan of Warhammer Fantasy battles. Unfortunately, their lifespan within the series was not very long, having been forgotten fairly early. There were a few references to them here and there in later editions, but those were minuscule at best. So it's great to see such a old faction being introduced into Total War Warhammer in the form of a mod series. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. Your campaign will start in the northern reaches of Lustria. In regards to lore, yeah, this isn't a lore-friendly start. Of course, the Amazons had their own island, but obviously modders can't really manipulate the map that well to add in a custom island, so obviously this makes do perfectly fine. Here you are the only Amazon faction in game, and you will find yourself surrounded by a lot of potential enemies: Marcus Wolfheart, a large number of Skaven tribes, the Vampire Coast, and of course the Lizardmen of the region, who you can be quite friendly with, but they will possibly take the territories that you want, so you might have to start exterminating them. Your faction effects are as follows: Leadership +8 when in own or allied territory for all your armies. However, global recruitment duration is increased by 1 turn. Thankfully, however, global recruitment itself isn't really generally used that much, or at least I don't use it myself, as I like to expand at a decent pace that I can support my armies without needing to use global recruitment. This faction also has access to rights, which will work in the same format as those in Warhammer 2. Win a certain type of battle, reach a certain amount of levels with your faction leader, and so on. Now, all of these are primarily based on your armies. There are no rights to focus around your construction of settlements and so on. Instead, it helps you become more of a defensive and offensive force. Your construction tab for your settlements is of course completely revamped. As you can expect, there are a bunch of new units added in for this faction. Your armies are primarily based on warrior women, but you will also have access to certain creatures in the jungle. Beasts such as wildcats and jaguars, but also carnosaurs, bastillodons and stegodons, among others. As you can see, the framework for both the army and the settlements are created in a very similar style to those of the Lizardmen, but this makes a lot of sense here. You don't need that many unique buildings, as the Lizardmen and the Amazons were closely related in terms of alliance and so on, where the Amazons were usually seen as a sub-faction to the Lizardmen, despite the fact that the Amazons also, in occasion, would turn around and slaughter them. The technology tab itself shows a rather massive research tree, with 5 individual different styles of branches, all of which are rather specialized. For example, the Jungles tab seems to focus more around the administration of your settlements. It's absolutely massive and it will keep you busy for a long time. My only real issue with the research here is the fact that the technology tab itself has a bunch of texts which are locked behind different sources, for example getting buildings built up and so on. Yeah, you'll eventually end up building them, but I don't really like being forced to construct certain buildings which might not follow my army format, or settlement format better yet said. Missions will pop up in regards to Regiments of Renown. You won't unlock them normally with this faction. Instead of just leveling up characters, what you need to do is, for example, take over certain settlements. This will make you be more aggressive in your campaign, which will mean that eventually you will have to turn your attention to the Lizardmen. Your first and starting legendary lord is Penthesilea, a character mostly focused around melee combat, and also some bonuses against the male factions in Warhammer Fantasy, primarily Bretonnia, the Empire, and so on. Stat-wise, she's a fairly decent melee lord, and can boost up the capabilities of her ranged forces. You'd most likely want to focus around a archer-heavy build with this character, and don't expect big monsters as they cost a whopping 80% plus upkeep. Her bonuses against the Empire, Norsca, and Bretonnia are quite situational indeed. There's only one Imperial faction and Norsca faction in Lustria. However, if you decide to form a mighty kingdom and move into the old world, then the benefits themselves become much more useful. You'll also get access to another legendary lord, which you can recruit whenever you want, Waxana, the Curse Witch of Blue Stumps. She is a immensely powerful magically based legendary lord, giving a wide variety of magic resistance based bonuses. You'll see here that she has the choice of 3 different laws of magic: the Law of Dark Magic, the Law of Shadows, and the Law of Serpents, which is uniquely added for this faction. You'll only be able to have access to one law, so make sure you think about your choice, or else you may get stuck with a Law of Magic that might not even suit your playstyle later on in the game. Shame you can't just cheese it and get all 3, but then again, balance exists for a reason. Another interesting thing to note about this character is that she's also a Horde legendary lord. A small amount of buildings are available for her, mostly focused around recruitment. Now, you can use this to your advantage. As you're working around conquering Lustria, you might want to focus around taking other parts of the world. This character itself is perfect to launch invasions against, for example, the Old World or the Dark Elves in the north. Obviously, this mod also includes a bunch of uniquely added Lord and Hero options. We won't spend too much time talking about them because in truth you can more or less already expect what they do. There are 2 Lord options themselves, one more of a melee based character and the other one being a spellcaster, which has access to a few different laws of magic, the main one obviously being the Law of Serpents. The same can also be said in regards to the hero characters, where you have a basic melee character, a basic caster, once again able to use different laws of magic, and also this time there is a new hero which focuses around ranged combat, which works perfectly well if you're trying to go on a full ranged army. One thing to note here though is every now and then you will have random events spawning which will give you access to skinks. This is the only way you'll actually get access to any skink heroes. Of course, you can keep them or you can just delete them. In truth, you don't really need them. They won't really bring too much to the table, as the Amazon uniquely added heroes themselves will more or less cover what you need. But now we'll take the time to check out all the units uniquely added in through this mod, with of course the dinosaurs also added in from the Lizardmen to this faction. With this faction you have an army of warrior women and they're all out for blood. It's actually rather cool to see 2 big name mod series working together to create a unique experience with a new faction. A conjoining of expanded roster and OVN seems to synergize incredibly well. The armies themselves are what you expect from Amazons, big beasts and, well, mostly half-naked women. They're fast and hard-hitting, but don't expect a lot of armor. In truth, they will get slaughtered fairly quickly if you don't plan ahead and use more ambushing tactics more than anything else. Visually, I think they look absolutely incredible, and you can tell that their style and art has been taken from parts from the lore which in truth had very little to go about it. Very little art and very little lore really exists about the Amazons, so obviously some artistic interpretation had to be taken here. But you'll see through this video, especially when we start looking towards the shields of the units, they look absolutely great. I think my only issue with this faction mod itself is the fact that a lot of the technology tree is locked behind so many prerequisites, but to be honest, that's also my issue with the Lizardmen, so it may just be me. Also, it would have been rather interesting to have the other legendary lord as another Horde faction, and by that I mean as a playable second faction. It would have been an interesting way to have 2 Amazon factions for potential co-ops and so on. However, of course, I do understand that the Amazons themselves are rather limited in number, so it's probably been done like this to just have one playable faction showing up on the map. The mod itself is incredibly fun to play. I feel like the modders behind this have represented the Amazons in an extremely lore-friendly way. Given the limitations in terms of lore as discussed before, there's only so much you can do. And it's a must-have for people who want to try out a new experience. Also, this mod itself will most likely be the only way you can experience the Amazons of Warhammer, as it's very likely we'll never see this faction implemented in an official way. There's really not that much lore that Creative Assembly can work upon. It's not like, for example, the Vampire Coast, which, comparing it to the Amazons, have a lot more lore. But with that being said, you can find the links to these mods in the description below. Bear in mind, in regards to this, you will need all the separate submods for OVN Lost Factions in order to make this work. Direct links of all those can be found in the description of the mod page itself. And also, the Amazons of Lost Factions will not work without the expanded roster series, so make sure to download that specific Amazon submod. That will also be linked in the description below. Finally, if you know of any mods that you might want to suggest for me to check out and possibly do a spotlight on the channel, you can always suggest them in the comments section below. Or may I suggest also joining the Great Book of Grudges official Discord, where it's much easier to get in contact with me. A direct link for that is also in the description below. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.